Night? The second floor of the collateral bar is the scene of action. Suddenly, a red-haired figure grabs the girl from behind, covering her mouth. The girl begs in horror, "Please don't do this." A sinister smile appeared on the red-haired girl's face. This is the only way. She tries to free herself but hears in response, "You know." In an instant, the cold barrel of a pistol was already at her temple. Despair in the voice. It's been 99 days. Is this really how it will end? The red-haired girl snorts mockingly. "What is this? Did you decide that you are in charge here?" With a gun to her head, she reminds him, "You know this is temporary." The name Hester is a whisper, full of menace. The scene changes. Before us is the Impreneur Cafe on a busy street. Inside, there is a cozy atmosphere, shelves with coffee beans and soft lighting. 3 ladies are chatting animatedly at a table, enjoying their drinks. The cafe is full of customers. The barista is working behind the counter. "Your coffee is ready," the barista smiles, handing the cup to the girl. The girl with the coffee says thoughtfully, "Sorry, just curious." The barista asks with interest about her occupation, since she comes every day. "But if it's personal, you don't have to answer," she adds sheepishly. The female customer smiles softly. "Oh no, it's okay, really. I help those who are in pain. I listen to their stories," she replies. The barista finds her occupation wonderful, and the girl modestly agrees. After saying goodbye, she leaves the cafe to the sound of a bell. A girl hurries along a busy street past a passing carriage. There is determination in her eyes. "If I hurry, I'll make it." Turning the corner, she stops in surprise when she sees a crowd. People gathered at the entrance to the collateral bar, discussing something heatedly. "What's going on here? Why is everyone crowded together?" she thinks. She tries to see through the crowd, wondering, customers? Suddenly, all eyes are on her, and shouts of "Manager" are heard. The crowd surrounds her, shouting in unison, "We've been waiting, why so late?" A girl in shock tries to calm the raging crowd. Cries of "Hess, sister" come from the crowd of people reaching out to her. Edgar, Hester's childhood friend, suddenly appears looking worried. Hester is surprised to see him and asks what he is doing there while he asks to talk. Edgar tries to take her hand, his gaze full of concern. She gently pushes his hand away, saying, "Later." Hester reminds him that customers are waiting, even though the bar isn't even open yet. She firmly asks the crowd to part, trying to get inside. Hester rushes up the stairs, and the people follow her. A close-up of feet rushing up the steps emphasizes the persistence of the crowd. Hester pushes her way through the door of the collateral bar, breathing heavily. With the key in her hand, she sincerely does not understand what all this crowd is doing here. Turning to the people, she decides to invite them all inside for now. Edgar watches Hester with concern from the crowd of impatient customers. She resolutely inserts the key into the lock, intending to open the bar. Close-up of the key turning, the click of the lock echoing. Opening the door, Hester offers to speak to each one in turn, begging for order. Suddenly, someone's hand roughly grabs her from behind, pulling her inside. Edgar remains outside in front of the slammed door, the crowd shouting indignantly. Hester falls unconscious to the floor inside the bar, the victim of a sudden attack. Hester wakes up on the bar floor screaming, "What's going on?" Edgar apologizes for knocking her down, assuring her that the matter is urgent. He asks to spare him a moment, reminding him of their long friendship. Hester looks at him in confusion, saying the name Edgar. Edgar, with anxiety in his voice, imploringly repeats, "Hez." In a comical interlude, Hester grumbles about whether their connection will pay him his salary and asks to be called sis. Standing up abruptly, she demands to speak faster, citing being busy. Edgar anxiously addresses her as little sister and asks about the whereabouts of the owner. Hester responds indifferently that she has no idea, assuming that he is sleeping at home. Edgar hesitates, starting to say, well, clearly intending to say something important. Edgar asks with a serious look to listen, warning that it will sound crazy. Hester looks at him with surprise and wariness. They stand in the empty bar. A tense silence falls. The situation is heating up. Both are silent, thinking about the upcoming conversation. Sitting down at the counter, Hester says, "Edgar?" And he responds, "Yes, sis." Hester, clutching her head, threatens him if this is a lie. But Edgar swears it is true. She pinches his cheek painfully, promising to use him as a signboard. Edgar cries out in pain. Hester lets him go, thinking what a drama as he complains of severe pain. Determined, Hester reaches for the doorknob, presumably to the master's room. She sighs, muttering under her breath, Ha, what the hell is going on? Hester throws open the bar door to reveal an eager crowd. She tries to hold back the pressure, begging everyone not to push and to enter calmly. Please sit down! Hester screams desperately, trying to restore order. The bar instantly fills up with people, the buzz of voices growing with every second. Hester looks at the assembled group with determination, her gaze full of seriousness. To be seen better, she quickly climbs onto the nearest chair. Rubbing her hands, Hester prepares to address the excited crowd. Guests, listen carefully, she begins, asking those she is addressing to raise their hands. Anyone who doesn't know what the central collateral is and doesn't care, raise your hand, Hester announces. In a comical insert, the embarrassed couple raise their hands. We're here. Hester wonders why the couple came, and they reply that they saw the line and decided the place was popular. Apologizing, Hester sends the couple away, promising to treat them another time, since today is another event. Clearing her throat, Hester addresses the crowd again. So who knows what central collateral is? Her gaze becomes sharp. And which one of you is the spy? Raise your hand. To her amazement, almost the entire bar raises their hands, confirming her guess. A bead of sweat runs down Hester's temple as she realizes the scale of what's happening. So everyone here is a spy? A shocking thought flashes through her head. The caption reads, Hester, manager of the collateral bar, spy hideout, as she looks at her customers. A title card appears, 2 days ago, 9 p.m. at the collateral bar. A hand hands over an exquisite cheese plate and says, Your order is ready. Aisha, a regular at the bar, asks the manager with a smile if the owner is coming today. Hester wipes the glass, and Aisha notes that since the owner has a day off, there will be fewer customers. The manager agrees with a slight smile that the bar is indeed quieter without the owner. Hester looks thoughtfully towards the shelves of bottles, her smile becoming mysterious. She places a fresh newspaper on the counter in front of Aisha, catching her attention. A close-up of the Village Times newspaper reveals a headline about an interview with Warden 𝘓𝘕. The map shows the location of 𝘓𝘕 prison in the neutral country of 𝘓𝘓, surrounded by 3 powers. A grim illustration depicts the 𝘓𝘕 prison, an impregnable stone fortress. The explanation is that those who are difficult to punish in the name of the empire are exiled to 𝘓𝘓. Hester clenches her fist in determination, because most of these criminals are from the blotted empire. Hester thinks darkly, what a creepy place. Aisha asks curiously, Manager, did you say something? An elegant man with an umbrella enters the bar, shaking something off his shoulder. Hester looks thoughtfully at the newcomer, noting to herself, This client? The man sits down silently at the counter, his expression serious and focused. Hester places a martini glass in front of him, saying, Welcome. She clarifies with a smile, Martinis again today, right? The man nods slightly, and Hester adds, There you go, enjoy. Aisha calls out to the manager, trying to get her attention to something. As Aisha approaches, she whispers in Hester's ear, Has that man ordered anything yet? Hester explains that this customer always gets martinis and is a don't-talk-to-me type. Aisha remembers that she has something for the manager, taking it out of her bag. Aisha hands Hester a handful of gourmet chocolates. Little chibi Hester asks in surprise, What the hell is this? Aisha says that the chocolate is for Hester, who always works hungry, and says goodbye by mentioning the rain. Hester gratefully accepts the treat from the caring Aisha. It's raining outside the bar, creating a melancholic atmosphere. Left alone, Hester sits down tiredly on a chair, propping her head up with her hand. A close-up shows Hester's tired face, lost in thought. The mysterious stranger with a martini smiles faintly, watching something. On the shelf, an antique clock ticks, counting down the moments. Hester comes to her senses with a start, as if suddenly struck by inspiration. She realizes that she has dozed off, and the mysterious stranger has already left. Hester looks around, trying to comprehend what just happened. An empty glass, an umbrella, and a stack of coins remained on the counter, payment for the drink. It's raining heavily outside, and Hester is watching it with an umbrella. The title card reads, The day before the collateral incident, midnight. Hester makes a mocktail for a customer named Serge, who asks for 3 pineapple wedges. The soft clink of a shaker breaks the silence as Hester considers her order. Another man enters the bar, and Hester notes to herself, That's not him. The bar owner asks with a smile if Hester is waiting for someone, since she keeps looking at the door. Hester, embarrassed, replies, Nothing special, continuing to pour the drink. A ready-made pina colada cocktail with 3 pineapple wedges appears on the counter. Serge playfully remarks that if Hester doesn't drink, she can buy juice at the store, but he likes her performance. Hester asks Serge not to lean so close and to stop calling her darling. Serge asks again with feigned surprise, "Darling?" And Hester turns away with a smile. The bar owner, squinting, asks Serge, "3 decorations?" Serge confirms with a mysterious smile that today is an important day. The explanation reads, "At central collateral, garnishes on cocktails have special significance." The number of segments indicates the importance of the information being conveyed. The bar owner, crossing her arms, asks Serge about the purpose of his visit. Is he looking for information or has he made a proposal? Serge, folding his arms, declares that he needs the identity of the jackal, imprisoned in 𝘓𝘓 prison. The hostess, with a slight smile, asks why Serge is so curious, since the jackal is a criminal from the 𝘓𝘓 Empire. She reminds him that she works for the good of Osbeer and cannot act in the interests of one party. Serge, with a sly smile, notes that if she reveals the jackal's identity, it will benefit someone else. The bar owner looks away thoughtfully, considering Serge's words. She leans towards Serge, saying that even if she doesn't reveal the jackal's identity, she can answer what's troubling him. Serge, surprised and holding a cocktail in his hand, asks if she really knows what's bothering him. He pulls back slightly, as if not believing his ears, and asks if there is anything he doesn't know. The hostess confidently places a card with the number 90 on the counter, hinting at a price or condition. Serge looks at the map in bewilderment, asking again, "90?" The bar owner explains with a smile that this is the answer to his question. Suddenly, the landlady tells Hester to go home, causing her surprise. She explains that Hester will have a lot to do tomorrow, so she lets her go early. Hester quickly agrees, says goodbye and leaves, and the hostess notes her agility. The door closes behind Hester, leaving the hostess and Serge alone. The bar owner turns to Serge, who is still sitting at the counter with a cocktail. An inscription pops up, like her thought or instruction, "Be kind to our manager." Serge, with a playful grin, asks if he's not cute enough already. The bar owner smiles mysteriously in response, her eyes sparkling. The bar owner, with her back turned, says that Serge needs to try harder to touch Hester. She sternly asks Serge if he understands, and he reluctantly agrees. Serge turns abruptly and leaves, leaving his mistress alone. The bar owner sighs tiredly, adjusting her hair after a tense conversation. The caption reads, "Back to the present, 5:30 p.m. at the Collateral Bar, with Hester standing with her back to the crowd." Hester, in profile, sighs heavily as she adjusts her tie before her performance. She places several empty glasses on the counter, preparing for something. Hester begins to quickly fill the glasses with red liquid from the bottle. Numerous shot glasses of the red drink are now neatly lined up on the bar counter. Hester addresses the guests, asking for their attention and announcing that she will be stepping away for a moment. Hester's colleague asks her worriedly where she is going, offering to go with her. Hester firmly declares that she will go alone to sort things out, and that he is the most dangerous to her. Chibi versions of Hester and her co-workers silently pout at each other. Hester pats him on the head, asking him to look after the others, as she trusts him more than anyone. The guy, embarrassed, agrees, promising that he can be relied on. Hester runs out of the bar and into the street. Her heel twists and she begins to fall. Hester's eyes widen in fear. She's about to fall. Hester loses her balance, her hand flailing helplessly in the air. A stranger in an elegant coat catches Hester, urging her to be careful. The stranger asks Hester sympathetically if she is okay. Hester, stammering with embarrassment, mutters, Don't talk to me." Hester's inner voice panics. "Oh, I accidentally said his nickname." The man calmly replies, I understand, and Hester thinks he misunderstood her. Hester hopefully asks if he knows about the central collateral. The stranger nods silently, confirming her guess. Chibi Hester realizes in horror, this man is also a spy. Hester, having collected herself, invites him in, deciding to let in only this client. She immediately jumps up from her seat, complaining about the delay due to the new visitor. Hester recalls how a colleague would disappear into the crowd, and she herself would not be visible behind the distinguished guests. Hester races down the dark alley, determined. She is breathing heavily, but her gaze is full of purpose. Hester deftly pushes off the box and prepares to jump. She flies over the obstacle, her skirt fluttering as she moves. Hester lands gracefully without missing a beat. The girl continues her rapid run through the narrow streets. Finally, she stops in front of a massive green door. Hester knocks frantically, shouting, "Master!" She screams impatiently, asking if she should break down this door. A sarcastic voice comes from behind the door. "Oh, how scary." The door creaks open, letting light into the dark passage. The red-haired woman with the suitcase comes out, scolding Hester for breaking the door. The landlady demands that Hester immediately explain what happened at the collateral. The woman puts down her glass of water, noticing that Hester seems to have figured it all out. A map of the state of 𝘕𝘯𝘯 with its coat of arms appears on the screen. Hester admits that she knows their bar is a front for 𝘕𝘯𝘯's intelligence agency, the Central Collateral. She adds that the master holds a high position and has information that threatens the 𝘓𝘓𝘯 Empire. The red-haired woman smiles mysteriously as she listens to Hester's confessions. The inscription reads, "That's why everyone is looking for the master." Hester defiantly states that most of their regular customers are spies and asks if she has covered everything. The hostess notes with a smile that Edgar summed everything up perfectly. Hester sighs, wanting to know the essence of the dangerous information to combat spies. The hostess appreciates Hester's determination to face problems head-on. The woman decides not to hide anything anymore and mentions a criminal nicknamed Jackal. The sinister Jackal was once imprisoned in Wayland Prison. It was he who became the culprit of the conflict between the Duchy of Vitriol and the Empire. The Jackal also attempted to hijack a train heading to the Empire's main ally. For this daring crime, he was finally captured and put in chains. Hester clarifies whether "was imprisoned" means that the Jackal is no longer in prison. The hostess confirms with a sly grin that he was indeed arrested. Hester assumes that the mistress's information concerns the Jackal. She asks if the mistress knows about the Jackal's current status and location. Hester is puzzled why such a dangerous criminal has not been declared wanted. The hostess gloomily declares that this man has no face. She explains that the Jackal has been wearing the mask since his transfer to the Empire. Those who claim to have seen him without a mask disappeared without a trace. Hester asks excitedly if the mistress is just trying to scare her. The hostess asks Hester to remember what she is about to say. The girl listens attentively, expecting important instructions. The hostess starts from afar, saying that there are good clients and even good drunks. The hostess abruptly grabs Hester by the shoulders, beginning the sentence. "But Hester..." With a stern look, she declares that there are no good spies. The woman reaches for the door handle, clearly about to leave. The hostess promises Hester to return in exactly 100 days. With suitcase in hand, she waves goodbye as she climbs out the window. The mistress's last instruction: behave in front of them as if you know everything. Hester leaves the room, pondering her mentor's parting words. The bar was already filled with customers, animatedly discussing something. The girl resolutely heads towards the stairs leading to the basement. Looking at the two safes, Hester thinks, if what the mistress said is true, Hester suggests that the safe contains the password and rules of the collateral. The first rule is that spies can either give or receive information. To balance the exchange of information, a special card system has been introduced. The owner places stamps on the cards reflecting the value of the data brought. The number of cards to obtain information depends on its importance, reaching 3 for top-level information. However, the master may delay the transfer of data if it threatens the safety of 𝘕𝘯𝘯. It is impossible to completely refuse information. Equivalent information will be offered in return. At the bar, the customers eagerly notice Hester's appearance, calling her the manager. Hester demands that everyone show their cards, announcing the terms of access to information. One of the visitors clicks his tongue in disappointment. He is only 1 card short. Unlucky customers leave the bar. One of them was just 1 card short of access. There are 9 spies left in the room who have passed Hester's initial selection. Edgar calmly presents his 3 cards, which are needed to obtain information. Serge, with a smug smile, also shows the 3 treasured cards. Aisha shows her 3 cards with a sweet smile, also gaining access. The client, left without cards, is in shock. Even Aisha has enough of them. Suddenly, a whole scattering of cards falls on the table in front of Hester. Joel, one of the spies, calmly presents 12 cards. The other spies in the room watch this demonstration with interest. Someone's surprised gaze is fixed on Joel and his impressive set of cards. The camera's gaze stops on the dartboard, hinting at the test to come. There are empty glasses and fruits on the table in the meeting room. Hester announces, "So, with that," creating intrigue among the spies. The girl points to a door with a sign, "Private Room," inviting people to enter one by one. One of the spies raises her hand impatiently, shouting, Me first. Edgar watches. Hester explains with a smile that the order is not important because this is not an exchange, but a bet. Left alone, Hester breathes a sigh of relief, preparing for the next step. The second rule of collateral appears. Within a radius of 50 meters, spies do not harm each other. Anyone who breaks this rule will face severe punishment. Their identity will be revealed to the enemy nation. The third rule is that it is forbidden to find out the identity of the master of the collateral or to threaten him. This rule ensures the objectivity of information, and its violation is punishable in the same way as harm to another spy. Hester awaits the first visitor to the private room with slight anxiety. A man's shoe crosses the threshold, and a voice gives permission to enter. A man enters and remarks, "You don't look well," to Hester. He politely asks if he can talk to her, and Hester mentally recognizes Mr. Don't Talk to Me. A flashback to the dark past begins, and Hester remembers the nickname given to this man. The girl panics and realizes that she accidentally gave him this nickname. Hester, clearing her throat, offers the man to draw lots from the tray. The man reaches for the tray, and Hester swallows nervously, watching him. He pulls out a note that says darts, and Hester confidently thinks that she is good at darts. The man clarifies the rules, Hester explains. 3 throws, the highest score wins, and in the event of a tie, the one with the smallest spread of darts wins. Hester smiles and offers the man to throw first, and he nods. The girl exhales with concentration, preparing for her first throw. With a deft movement, Hester releases the dart from her hand. All 3 of Hester's darts land close to the center, earning her 50 points. Hester wishes the client luck with a satisfied smile. The man asks Hester to move away a little with a serious look. Hester wonders with surprise at how hard he is going to throw. A man throws his dart at a target with incredible force. His dart not only hits the bull's eye, but also splits the previous one, which had hit the exact center. Joel hits the bull's eye perfectly, splitting Hester's dart. It's Robin Hood's arrow. Hester is completely shocked by such skill, a dart within a dart. Serge bursts into the room, coquettishly addressing Hester as sweetheart and asking her to guess his lot. Serge is sure that Hester will answer at least one of his questions, and the girl is wondering what he definitely didn't get out of it. He shows a note, staring game, stating that he likes it and there is no backing down. Hester announces the rules. Whoever blinks first loses. No touching with hands, no lifting your feet off the floor. The girl curiously asks Serge how he became a spy, because he doesn't look like one at all. Serge replies with a grin that Hester won't believe it, but he's handsome. Hester mentally protests. Absurd. Is he serious? Serge smiles slyly. Serge leans too close to Hester, asking her to judge for herself, and the girl shyly asks him to move away. Serge whispers to Hester that he enjoys this closeness, feeling closer to her. He continues, comparing her eyes to perfectly roasted hazelnuts. Suddenly, Serge blows directly into Hester's eye, causing her to blink. Hester shouts in rage that it's a scam, but Serge only smiles smugly. He proudly declares that his specialty is finding loopholes in the rules. Serge places a bottle on the table, offering a remedy for the headache she had been experiencing earlier. Hester irritably thinks that he is the cause of her headache. However, Hester's winning streak continues. She wins the apple peeling, water challenge, and word game. After a series of tests, Hester collapses on the table, completely exhausted. A hand gently touches Hester's head, and a voice asks if she is okay. Hester looks up in surprise. Edgar? In a chibi scene, Hester comically shakes Edgar, outraged that he called her by her first name again. Hester sternly reminds Edgar that he must call her Nuna. Edgar looks confused, and Hester inquires about his lot, realizing that he got the last one. Nuna, are you mad at me, huh? Edgar asks, but Hester turns away silently. Hester chuckles. Haha, you're right, remembering how she enjoyed his career as an architect and now he's a spy. Edgar clenches his fist, and Hester continues, You and the master, both so confused. What were you thinking? Hester looks at him determinedly. I'll deal with this whole situation, but you know what makes me the angrier? Edgar listens, and Hester confesses, Even when everything I believed in has collapsed, I still sit here with you. I'm angry with myself, Edgar. Edgar firmly takes Hester's hand, declaring, No, this is all my fault. He squeezes her hand tighter. I'm sorry. Don't be mad at yourself, sister. Edgar hangs his head guiltily, and Hester looks at him with mixed feelings. The girl turns away sharply, hiding her true emotions. In the chibi scene, Hester gives Edgar a light slap in the face that goes by with a whoosh. Edgar clutches his cheek and Hester warns, "At least admit your guilt. I'll make you work until you sweat. Get ready." Hester smiles faintly and Edgar meekly agrees. "Fine. Use me however you want. I won't complain, even if it's as a mop." She remembers the draw. "You drew rock, paper, scissors, right? No explanation needed." Edgar clarifies what she will be showing, causing Hester to wonder about his spy skills. Suddenly, another scene. A tied-up woman in a white dress decisively declares, "We have to stop this." Back to Hester and Edgar. She confirms the game of rock, paper, scissors, and he inquires about her first move. Hester wonders in her mind how Edgar became a spy in the first place. Edgar explains that he went the usual route, using connections, and they begin a game of rock, paper, scissors. Hester is surprised that Edgar chose scissors, since he always played rock. He asks with a smile if she really wanted him to lose. The girl turns away, admitting that it was obvious, because she didn't want him to get involved in dangerous things. Hester sighs. "It can't be helped since I won the bet." She smiles and notes that Edgar has grown up and tells him to follow her. Hester turns to the bar where Serge is waving flirtatiously at her and Joel is sitting next to her. Hester loudly congratulates everyone who won a bet with her today. She offers a drink, and the men's faces express surprise and interest. Glasses of cold drinks with ice appear on the counter. Hester smiles and offers everyone some drinks. Joel offers a discreet thanks as he accepts his glass. Serge enthusiastically declares to Edgar that everything his darling has prepared is delicious. Edgar sharply asks Serge not to stare, but he just waves his hand, calling him names. An exhausted Hester pours herself some wine, muttering that she doesn't have the strength to make a cocktail. The text pops up. The third rule of the pledge bar: information from the master cannot be duplicated. The rule continues: overheard information from another spy may not be used for personal purposes. Violation of this rule is punishable by the disclosure of the spy's identity to the enemy, as in the second rule. Hester looks thoughtfully into the distance, holding a glass of wine against a disturbing red background. Someone notices her deep in thought, saying, "You look like you're deep in thought." Joel, with a glass, assumes that the answer to who to give the information to is obvious. Serge quips that passing on information that could destroy a nation to an unknown person is stupid. Edgar angrily declares that he is in every way better than these suspicious individuals. Hester watches with irritation as the men, symbolized by yapping dogs, squabble. She furiously orders them to be silent, literally freezing the disputants with her gaze. The fourth rule arises: the master's request, not related to the security of the SPV, is fulfilled without question. Hester agrees thoughtfully. Edgar is right. The girl explains that without knowing their spy arsenal, it is difficult to choose who to entrust the Jackal's data to. She decisively declares, after thinking about it, "I will give the information to the one who treats me best." Edgar, Serge, and Joel's eyes watch her every word with intent. Edgar suggests rating their efforts with points to avoid bias when referring to sister. Hester announces that the first person to reach 100 points will receive the information and asks for consent. Joel nods silently, and Serge accepts the terms with a smile. "It suits me, dear." The girl decides to start the competition tomorrow and begins to clear the table with a smile. Hester points decisively towards the exit, ordering the men to disperse, much to their surprise. Joel asks why the manager herself doesn't leave, to which Hester replies about having to wash the dishes. The man offers to help, but Hester refuses, citing the expensive glasses. Serge immediately offers to take her home, but receives a sharp refusal and a request to leave. Edgar, beaming, also offers to help, but Hester tells him to go home too. In a comical chibi scene, Hester literally pushes all three of them out, demanding that they leave immediately. The men say goodbye and Hester lets out a tired sigh, left alone. A girl sits in an empty bar, thinking that she should just run away. The next day, before the opening of the 𝘕𝘠log bar, someone rustles inside. The sign reads D99 until the master returns, and Hester is busy with the shelves. Hester wonders why the master didn't even tell her the code to the safe. She wonders if she should just break into the second safe. Suddenly, the girl notices a note on the safe. Was she here yesterday? The note reads, "Hester, it's me. Look behind you." And she turns around in surprise. The note continues, "You must question everything. Why did you turn around?" Hester is confused. The note reads, "I know I've put a heavy burden on you, but understand that it's because I trust you." The note from the master ends with the words, "I believe in you, Hester. leaving the girl with mixed feelings. In her memoirs, the master writes that she is not reckless and promises to fulfill Hester's dream upon her return. The master also assures in the letter, "I will protect your brand." The clock on the shelf of the 𝘕𝘠𝘯𝘓 bar is ticking, counting down the time until opening. Hester, clutching the note, states, "It's opening time." The girl turns around, preparing to greet the first visitors or start work. Joel, Edgar, and Serge appear on the doorstep, vying with each other to offer their help. The pledge bar opens. Hester looks at the notice board and the thought, "But," foreshadows some complications. Edgar happily announces that he caught the bug with the stand, while Serge drops the tray in horror and Hester is perplexed. Hester barely contains her anger, muttering, "My hand again," while Edgar proudly asks if he did well. Hester sternly announces that Serge will lose 5 points for the mess and the broken plate. As punishment, the trio are sent to sit at a separate table in the corner in chibi style. Hester, hands on hips, thinks that if she is too kind, her establishment will not stand. Joel comes up from behind and offers to help the manager, but she hesitates mentally. As Joel ties her apron, he apologizes and asks if her "be nice" clause only applies to the bar. Joel seriously states that if you're going to be nice, you have to be nice everywhere. He adds that he will evaluate their behavior very carefully while tying his apron. Hester thanks him with a smile and makes an appointment at the pledge tomorrow at noon. The girl immediately becomes mentally indignant. Why should she meet with a client outside of working hours? Edgar intervenes, demanding equal terms, to which Hester declares that she does not intend to meet with him either. Joel notes that since the three of them have the same goal, clashes in the pledge are inevitable. He remembers how Hester kicked them out and sincerely asks to give them a chance. Hester agrees if everyone promises to be quiet, and the men immediately give their word. A new customer, Aisha, enters the bar and greets the manager happily. Hester hands over the menu and Aisha orders a cocktail with 𝘓𝘠𝘠𝘠𝘠. The girl nods understandingly, thinking that Aisha just came in to rest today. The fifth rule appears. To understand the spy's goal, it is enough to look at his cocktail. Cocktails with vodka, request for information from the master, with gin, transfer of information. The number of garnishes on a cocktail determines the importance of the information being conveyed. A different cocktail or lack of garnish is a routine visit. Hester is surprised she hasn't noticed it in 7 years. Hester places the finished 𝘓𝘓𝘠𝘠𝘠 cocktail on the counter. Aisha is delighted with the drink, praising the manager, and Hester smiles modestly. Aisha finishes her cocktail and places the empty glass on the coaster. As she leaves, Aisha encourages Hester by mentioning the lost bet and the upset client. Hester wishes her luck and notices a paper bag left on the table. There is a note in the bag from Aisha asking her not to skip dinner and to eat at least this. Hester remembers the master's words about suspicion and realizes that the bar remains a spy den. Edgar approaches Hester, asking how her conversation with the visitor went. Edgar suggests a rule: meet strangers only one at a time and refuse if it is inconvenient. Hester is surprised by the spy's politeness as Joel and Serge watch in silence. Edgar makes a point of etiquette, but Hester waves him off until Serge playfully interjects, "Calling me, dear?" Hester warns Serge that for every darling she will take off points, but he only smirks that it is a matter of principle. Hester announces -1 point, so Serge is down 6. He says, "Honey," again, and she clarifies, "That's 2 points down." Hester turns away, snorting, "That's -7. Serge looks puzzled by this calculation. But Serge is not discouraged, and with a cheeky grin promises, "Wait for it, darling." The trio of spies, Serge, Edgar, and Joel, exchange determined glances, ready to fight for points. The men sit tensely at the bar, lightning bolts of rivalry literally flashing between them. Morning comes, the sun's rays shine through the leaves, and then we see Hester sleeping peacefully in her bed. Suddenly, Hester jerks awake, her eyes wide with sudden realization. The girl jumps out of bed in a panic. "What time is it? This is crazy, I'm late!" Hester, running late, peers cautiously around the corner of the building. On a busy street, Joel is already waiting for her by the carriage, and people are bustling around. Joel stands with his arms crossed, and Hester wonders why he chose this particular place to meet. The girl decides to rely on fate, while Joel notices her approaching. Hester, fixing her hair, apologizes with a smile for being late, saying that he must have been waiting a long time. Joel looks at her with an unreadable expression, considering her words. He gently replies that the main thing is that she came, and gallantly extends his hand to her. Joel adds that he should be the one apologizing for not taking her tiredness into account and suggests that they go. Suddenly, they find themselves in front of a huge estate, and Hester looks at it in shock. In chibi style, Hester demands an explanation, and Joel calmly states that she needs training. Joel states that those who know about the jackal are not safe and is willing to accompany her around the clock, but Hester refuses. The man notices that the gym is surprisingly quiet. Joel reveals that he has rented the gym for the day for her to enhance her workouts, shocking Hester. The camera pans to wooden dummies and barrels full of arrows ready for use. A huge training hall appears before them, completely empty and spacious. Joel, now wearing a white shirt and a blindfold, announces the start of basic endurance training. With a determined look, he orders Hester to run 10 laps first. Chibi Hester panics and exclaims that she will die from such a strain, but Joel is adamant. Her endurance is on the level of a child. The girl is indignant. What kind of child runs like that? While Chibi Joel remembers that he was 7 then. Hester, breathing heavily, counters that everyone has their own strengths and suggests limiting it to 5 circles. Joel suggests 7 laps, and Hester indignantly wonders if he's being funny by getting -3 points. The girl, gathering her courage, declares that she will run 6 laps, and Joel adamantly confirms. Hester gathers her hair, resigned to the 6 circles, while Joel mentally notes her concession. They begin running around the huge hall, and Joel encourages them that the 6 laps will fly by. Joel runs easily alongside, reporting that half the way is done, and Hester is already breathing heavily. The man continues running confidently, announcing the final lap while Hester barely trails behind. Hester falls to the floor, exhausted, asking with difficulty if Joel is really trying to be kind to her. Joel sits down next to her, holding out a flask of water, and calmly confirms her guess. The girl looks at the water with suspicion, remembering the warnings, but Joel assures her of her safety. Hester takes the flask anyway and drinks greedily, while Joel watches her with a calm expression. Hester, catching her breath, asks Joel curiously if other ladies appreciate such attentions. In the chibi version, Joel admits that he is not sure, since this is his first time training a woman, even though he has trained many men. Hester chuckles, understanding why Joel always orders the strongest drinks as he calls the end of basic training. The girl resolutely demands to be taught how to handle weapons, ready for new challenges. Joel seriously agrees and suggests mastering the dagger first. Hester suddenly states that she is more interested in the guns, and Joel, tense, asks why. She explains that since the goal is self-defense, it is better to choose the most powerful weapon, recalling the scene of the shootout. Joel, turning his back, objects. With a firearm, she will be shot before she has time to react, but a sword is a different matter. He adds that rifles are awkward to handle, while pistols require consideration of recoil, reload speed, and trigger pull time. Joel takes out a dagger, hinting that fencing, unlike shooting, gives more chances in close combat. Joel demonstrates how easy it is to pull a dagger from under his cloak and strike. Hester reluctantly agrees to learn fencing first, acknowledging the benefits of self-defense. The man reassures her, promising that the worst will not happen and that he will always be there. The girl thanks him, and Joel offers her to choose a training dagger. The hand confidently takes one of the daggers lying among the wooden dummies. Hester looks thoughtfully at the blade she has chosen, feeling its weight. Determination flashes in her eyes as she prepares for a new challenge. The girl instinctively rubs her shoulder as if remembering an old pain or anticipating a future one. Hester takes a few steps around the room, testing out movements with the dagger in her hand. She grips the handle tightly, her gaze becoming serious and focused. Joel, with an icy gaze, shows off his grip on the dagger, ready to attack. He delivers a series of strikes with lightning speed, demonstrating masterful use of the blade. The dagger plunges deep into the wooden dummy with force, demonstrating the power of the blow. Hester is impressed in chibi style, and Joel modestly remarks that it's nothing. The man promises that by the next training session she will be able to do the same. Hester is horrified. The girl is indignant that her arms will fall off after 100 lunges, but Joel praises her perseverance. Joel, slightly embarrassed, says that he still has a lot to teach her. He awkwardly adds that he would be glad if she gave him another chance. Hester's eyes widen in surprise at his words. The girl, after thinking for a bit, admits that she feels uncomfortable constantly calling him a client. Joel, slightly embarrassed, suggests that she call him by his first name, Joel. Hester agrees with a smile but decides to address him as Mr. Joel. The girl asks to reduce the number of lunges by half next time, to which 𝘎𝘯𝘯 promises to think about it. The action moves to an evening street of the same day, in front of the 𝘕𝘠𝘠𝘠 bar. Hester goes to open the bar after practice, thinking that she could have come later. At the door of the bar, she notices a familiar blonde man who looks in her direction in surprise. Mr. Serge greets Hester happily, stating that he had been waiting for her, dear. Chibi Hester immediately takes 9 points off him, and Serge laments that she hasn't forgotten. The girl sighs and invites the persistent gentleman to enter the bar. At the counter, Hester asks Serge if his date with that lady went well. Serge smiles and invites Hester to meet tomorrow since she has a day off. Chibi Hester thinks he doesn't understand the meaning of day off, and Serge asks to give him a chance. Hester looks at Serge's drawing with bewilderment, not understanding what it depicts. Serge solemnly swears that if she doesn't like the meeting, he will not insist any longer. The girl asks again with doubt, and Serge insistently confirms, surprised by her distrust. Hester, arms crossed, reluctantly agrees, hoping that the meeting will not disappoint her. A beaming Serge makes a date in the square and quickly leaves, not wanting to tire Hester. Left alone, Hester decides it's time to get to work and put on her vest. As evening falls on the town, a new customer appears at the pledge bar, who is greeted by Hester. Hester looks out at the night street, sighing wearily about the hard day that has passed. The next morning, Hester wakes up in her cozy yet modest room. A girl in a nightgown looks in the mirror, noticing a mark on her shoulder from yesterday's workout. A sudden knock on the door makes Hester turn around in surprise. A familiar, cheerful voice is heard from behind the door, calling her by name. It's Edgar. Hester smiles and asks Edgar to leave, saying that they are too old for morning games. Edgar begs to open the door, saying he had a nightmare, and Hester sighs softly as she walks towards the door. Opening the door, Hester sees a beaming Edgar with a paper bag in his hands. Edgar gently chides her for her carelessness, but Hester replies that she recognized him by his steps. The girl invites Edgar to come in and wearily sinks into a chair. Edgar sits down opposite him, and Hester admits that she is very tired, arousing his curiosity. Edgar shows a full bag of figs, saying that he bought them for his little sister. Hester samples the treat, asking if he was thinking of her, and Edgar sheepishly confirms that he picked the best ones. The girl eats juicy figs with pleasure, looking thoughtfully to the side. Hester asks Edgar to leave, to which he objects in surprise, since he even brought figs. Chibi Edgar with puppy dog eyes begs not to kick him out, but Hester is adamant. The girl crosses her arms, suspecting that this is a bribe to get points, but Edgar denies everything. Hester explains that in order to judge fairly, she must give everyone an equal chance. Edgar resolutely declares in front of the mirror that he can defeat all his rivals. Hester watches his passionate speech with a slight smile. She calmly notes that truly strong people don't talk like that. Hester pats Edgar on the head, saying that his words prove immaturity, and asks him not to be friends with those people. The girl asks Edgar with a sly smile if he is jealous. Edgar, covering her hand with his, acknowledges that she is an adult and he is still a child. He looks at Hester, holding her hand, and says meaningfully, "So?" Edgar asks hopefully if he can stay the night. Chibi Hester refuses, reminding him of honesty, but Edgar asks to report the opponent's scores, and she sighs, "Just for today." Hester goes to get the blankets, and Edgar happily thanks her. The guy quietly mumbles words of gratitude for the fact that she didn't drive him away. At night, Hester lies in bed, and Edgar sleeps on a mattress on the floor nearby. Edgar quietly asks if Hester is asleep, and when she says no, asks if she has any questions. Hester thoughtfully lifts the blanket, deciding to ask the question that has been tormenting her for a long time. The girl asks Edgar why he got involved in such dangerous work, although she knows that she will not get an answer. She wonders why spies whose identities are a secret would gather at the pledge bar. Edgar, with a sly smile, offers to explain with a visual example. The boy asks if Hester knows about Osber's international relations with his neighbors. The map shows the complex relationships between the countries. Mellowheld is friends with Osber and Blodert, while Vitriol is at odds with them. Edgar paints a picture of a situation. A spy from Vitriol orders a special cocktail, whispers to the master, and leaves in a hurry. What does this mean? Hester guesses that this is how one can learn about upcoming dangers, but the role of the master is still unclear. Edgar explains that spies collect information bit by bit, but the overall picture is often missing details. And it is the master who holds the key information, filling in the gaps, so the spies are forced to rely on him. Hester nods thoughtfully, realizing that the bartender is something of an information broker. Edgar asks if Hester has noticed anything strange about the master, but she chalks it up to his eccentricity. Outside the window, a quiet scene can be seen. Edgar and Hester lost in thought in a pre-dawn room. Edgar's face darkens. He clearly regrets something, gathering his courage. Suddenly, Edgar quietly says, "Forgive me, Hess." Hester looks at him in surprise, not understanding what he is apologizing for. Edgar kneels down by her bed, takes her hand and says, "Just for everything." The boy lays his head on her lap, and Hester, stroking his hair, softly says his name. She lifts his chin, saying that the master should apologize, not him. Hester smiles encouragingly at Edgar, adding that he, on the contrary, is helping her. Edgar's gaze becomes determined and he swallows, clearly thinking of something. Edgar suddenly grabs Hester's hand, calling her name. He hopefully invites her to run away together, leaving everything behind. Hester looks at Edgar in surprise as he gently touches her chin. The girl is stunned by his proposal, not knowing what to think. Hester playfully pinched his cheeks, asking where he had picked up such bold words. With a sly smile, Hester declares that she will run away, but only after she has taught the master a good lesson. The girl calmly goes to bed, and Edgar, in a panic, asks if she really doesn't care about the future. Edgar watches Hester sleep with a grin, wondering if it is optimism or fearlessness. Suddenly, a light flashes on Hester's shoulder, and someone promises to erase her scar. Edgar quietly calls to Hester as he sits by her bed. His hand gently touches her blanket, checking. The guy leans over, asking if she's really asleep. Hester sleeps peacefully, her hand pressed to her cheek. Edgar looks at the sleeping girl with a gentle smile. He strokes her hair tenderly, wishing her good night. The next morning, Hester wakes up alone. Edgar's mattress is empty. The girl blinks sleepily, coming to her senses after sleep. Hester sits up, realizing that Edgar has left very early. Getting out of bed, she notices breakfast left for her. On the plate are delicious pancakes with a note from Edgar, an apology for the stolen day off. Hester eats, thinking that yesterday's Edgar was the kind boy she knew. She remembers his smile and embarrassed look when he brought her food. A sudden dark thought. There are no good spies. Edgar appears in her mind's eye with a sinister glint in his eyes, and Hester wonders if she ever knew the real him. An empty plate and a glance at her watch. Hester gasps, realizing how quickly time has flown. She quickly grabs the door handle, afraid of being late again. Hester runs out of the room, hurrying to the meeting. It's midday in the town square, 97 days until the master arrives. A laughing couple passes by, a man in an elegant suit and his companion. Children play carefree near the fountain, filling the square with laughter. Hester sits on a bench, looking thoughtfully out over the sun-drenched square. Someone's shadow approaches the girl from behind. Mr. Serge playfully touches her shoulder, wondering how she recognized him. Hester inhales with her eyes closed as if sniffing. She claims to have smelled his perfume, but Serge denies wearing it. The girl frowns thoughtfully, trying to catch the familiar scent. Hester clarifies. He smells like aromatic coffee with condensed milk. Serge invites her to check, and Hester, sniffing his hand, agrees. She inhales the scent of his skin, confirming the absence of perfume. Serge is slightly surprised, his purple eyes looking with interest. He notes that Hester remembered his natural scent. Mr. Serge suddenly takes Hester's hand. He admits that he is a little touched by her attention. Hester explains that she assumed about the perfume because of his concern for his appearance. Serge takes this as a compliment, and a luxurious carriage pulls up to them. He gallantly opens the door, inviting Hester to enter the carriage first. Hester looks around the spacious interior with delight, seeing such a large carriage for the first time. Sitting down opposite, Serge suggests continuing the conversation about why he doesn't use perfume. He explains that in his work, scent can be destructive because smells are remembered subconsciously. Serge explains with a smug smile that he will be remembered by his smell, just like Hester. Hester looks at him carefully, feeling that he is different today. She playfully snaps her fingers, declaring that he's already called her darling 4 times, minus 12 points. Serge counts on his fingers in surprise, not believing that he said this so often. Hester can hardly contain her laughter at his confused face. The girl changes the subject, asking where they are heading today. Hester remembers the note. She thinks there was a lion drawn on it, but she's not sure. Serge asks in surprise if she wants to go to the zoo since she saw a lion. Hester is adamant that she likes cute things, but not the zoo. A dark memory comes to mind. A little girl in a dark cell looking at a barred window. Hester's face darkens as she remembers her past. A little girl, locked in, looks out through the bars at the world. Hester thinks that seeing someone behind bars is pathetic and sad. Serge's violet eyes watch the girl's reaction carefully. The carriage shakes. Hester covers her face with her hands, lost in thought. Serge suggests that she imagine animals running freely across the meadows, and Hester agrees that that would be nice. "Great, I'll take that into account, dear," Serge readily replies. Hester remarks with a grin that he must be confident of their next meeting. When asked where they are going, Serge replies that they are almost there, again calling her darling. Hester peers out of the carriage window curiously as it continues on its way. Hester's gaze is met with an idyllic hill with a spreading tree and white columns. The girl asks Serge in surprise what kind of extravagant things she sees. Serge confirms with a smile that she saw everything correctly, placing his hands on her shoulders. The carriage creaks to a stop on the green grass. Mr. Serge, who had already left, extended his hand to Hester, inviting her to hurry. His hand takes hers gently but confidently. Serge helps Hester out of the carriage. She looks a little embarrassed. He asks her with a grin not to be surprised when he sees her stunned face. Before them opens a view of a luxuriously laid table among columns and fluttering fabrics. "What is this?" Hester whispers, and Serge announces that he has prepared an afternoon picnic for them. Serge gallantly pulls out his chair, inviting Hester to sit at the table because it is time for dinner. The girl asks in surprise, "Don't people sit on the grass on a blanket at picnics?" Mr. Serge replies with a smile that he couldn't let his darling sit on the ground. Hester snaps her fingers sharply at the familiar address. She looks reproachfully at Serge, who asks again in surprise, "Huh?" Suddenly, Hester listens, wondering if the singing is coming from above. Fiddlers play in the tree branches. Hester thinks it's too much, but Serge disagrees. The butler appears, ready to serve the dishes, which surprises the girl again. The butler bows and presents Hester with a plate of delicious hors d'oeuvres. A glass is placed on the table, filling it with ruby wine among an abundance of fruit. Hester is stunned as she looks at the table laden with lobsters, pineapples, and other sumptuous food. Serge proudly states that he prepared all of this in just half a day, thinking through every detail. The girl reproaches him for being excessive, but Serge takes it as a compliment, inviting her to eat. Hester notes with embarrassment that he went to such lengths, even though they are essentially strangers to each other. She adds that if Serge wants something, he can probably find out any information, and he freezes. Suddenly, Serge says, "You first, darling." He explains that she is the first person to sit here and admire this view with him. Serge looks at Hester with a tender smile, repeating that she is the one who was the first. Hester is startled by his words, her eyes wide against the shimmering flowers. They exchange glances. Hester is thoughtful, and Serge looks at her with a warm smile. Hester raises her glass, thinking to herself that Serge is truly a special man. She sips her wine, admitting that even if they are just pleasantries, she enjoys hearing them. Serge modestly replies, "Nothing special," as he watches Hester enjoy her drink. Suddenly, Serge clenches his fist, a shadow of determination flickering across his face. After dinner, the butler serves tea, warning that it is hot, while the couple relaxes under a tree. Hester, holding a cup in her hands, admires the scenery, noting how much she likes it here. The girl asks Serge about paper, and he readily offers her everything she needs to draw. Hester, sitting by the column, begins to sketch something in her notebook. Serge, with a cup of tea, watches her work with interest and a slight smile. Close-up of Hester's hand confidently moving a pencil across paper, creating a sketch. Hester's pencil glides across the paper, leaving behind the strokes of the future drawing. The girl, looking at the field, is surprised to realize how quickly time has flown by. Hester turns to call out to Serge, but her voice trails off. Mr. Serge sleeps peacefully on a comfortable couch, sprawled under a tree. Hester thinks with a slight smile how tired he must have been preparing all this. Serge stirs in his sleep, his hand reaching towards his face, and he sleepily mumbles, "Darling?" Opening one eye, Serge smiles and says that he is glad to see her first, admiring the beautiful view. Hester sheepishly apologizes for waking him, and Serge looks at her drawing with interest. Serge looks at his portrait with a grin, asking if that is really straw instead of his hair, and Hester asks him not to laugh. Laughing loudly, Serge assures her that he likes the drawing, but Hester doesn't believe his words. Serge insists that even the straws in the drawing seem alive, and Hester can't believe her ears. The man declares that since she drew it, he will keep the drawing for himself, and Hester gives in. A carriage drawn by 4 white horses rushes along the road among an endless field of tulips. Hester looks thoughtfully out the carriage window at the scarlet flowers floating past. Serge asks her if she likes tulips, but the girl admits to herself that she wasn't looking at them. Mr. Serge taps his finger, drawing her attention to something outside the window. The carriage stops right in the middle of the field, and Serge asks Hester to wait a little. He proudly announces that this entire tulip field is his private property, which shocks the girl. Hester kneels among the flowers, looking tenderly at one of the tulips. Serge approaches her, playfully hiding something behind his back, and warns her that it might stain her dress. Serge chuckled thoughtfully, continuing to hide something behind his back that looked like a pot. Hester reminds him of the possible stain, but Serge is ready to get dirty just to be like her. Suddenly, the scene changes to Hester, dressed in formal attire, working behind the bar, serving Serge and another customer. The camera pans over a sprawling estate with a training ground, hinting at a new location. Someone's hand confidently loads the revolver cylinder with cartridges. The loaded revolver is in the hand, ready to fire. The stranger in the shoulder strap thoughtfully aims his pistol. The instructor hands Hester the assembled revolver, advising her to remember its weight. There are 2 round targets set up at the shooting range, ready for practice. Hester watches the instructor closely, determined to study his technique thoroughly. Serge asks Hester to take care of the potted tulip he gave her and thanks her. Serge leaves in a carriage, saying goodbye, against the backdrop of the sign Pawn Bar. Hester tells Serge she will leave a flower at the bar and says goodbye, although he is surprised she is not going home on the day off. Serge from the carriage adds that points have been awarded for today's date. Hester announces with a smile that it is 12 points, meaning the score has reset and they start from 0. The girl turns away from the departing carriage, lost in her thoughts. Hester realizes she was in the red, but Serge interrupts, noticing that she called him darling 4 times. The man, with a sly smile, wonders if he can now call her darling without being fined, and says, "You really—" Serge playfully finishes the sentence. "Playing with me." His face lights up with a sly grin against the backdrop of roses. The scene shifts to an empty pawn bar with rows of bottles and chairs. Hester places the tulip on the windowsill, hoping it will bloom soon. A sudden knock on the wall makes the girl jump in surprise. Hester wonders where that strange sound from the wall could be coming from. With a loud crash, part of the wall collapses, illuminating the room with light. The girl opens her eyes in shock, not believing what is happening. Someone's boots appear from a hole in the wall, raising a cloud of dust. A tall stranger in a cloak with silver hair enters the room decisively. Hester covers her mouth with her hand, swallowing, and asks in horror who it is. The man introduces himself with a predatory smile. "Nice to meet you, Miss 𝘓𝘗." Hester suspects the stranger of being a spy and demands that he leave immediately. The stranger mutters with a grin, report." He knows that Hester is from the Thieves' Guild and won't be able to call the military police. The man claims that he knows everything about the manager of the pawn bar. The uninvited guest is already behind the bar offering Hester a drink, but she demands that he leave her place. He pours himself a drink, claiming that this is his stand since the pledge bar is a front for the central pledge. Hester chides him for the destroyed wall and asks if he is connected with the central pledge. The man confirms with a smug smile that the central pledge is connected to him. Hester listens as he prepares to reveal his public code name. He introduces himself as Lionel, the head of the central pledge. Lionel greets Miss 𝘓𝘗 again with a smile, this time formally. Lionel admits with a smile that he has long wanted to meet her in person. Hester glares at Lionel behind the counter with her arms crossed. The man asks not to stare at him because he rarely comes to 𝘓𝘓. He explains that Joel boarded up the wall, and Hester is surprised by his knowledge. Lionel admits that he watched until Serge broke the bottle. The girl shudders at the thought that she was being followed all this time. It turns out that the broken bottle was a lens projecting an image into a secret room. That's why the bar's lower floor is always closed. Agents are there to keep an eye out for violators. Hester taps her foot impatiently, considering what she has heard. Lionel takes a sip from his glass, asking with a grin if more proof of his identity is needed. Lionel invites Hester to press the plaque on the sculpture in the display case. Hester, after thinking for a moment, agrees to the man's proposal. The girl resolutely stands on a stool to reach the display case. Inside, she notices an illuminated statue of a grapevine. Hester's hand reaches for the plaque that reads "Vine" on the statue. With a soft click, the display case doors swing open, revealing a passageway. Hester freezes on her stool, looking in surprise at the opened hiding place. Lionel approaches her with a smile, asking if it isn't beautiful. Behind the display case, there is a whole arsenal: swords, daggers, and antique pistols. The secret room is full of various weapons, neatly arranged on shelves. Hester clutches her head, realizing that she has gotten herself into something dangerous because she thought that Central Pledge was just a reconnaissance operation. Lionel takes a sip, declaring that the best defense is a good offense, and it would be troublesome if she thought of them as mere clerks. The man snaps his fingers dramatically, drawing her attention to something. Attention is focused on the grapevine emblem on the wall, one of the berries of which is sparkling. The display case behind the armory closes with a dull thud, and Hester looks at it in confusion. The girl swallows nervously, her face expressing extreme tension from what is happening. Hester asks him point blank if he has come today to tell her something important. Lionel smiles and compliments her insight, taking something out of his inside pocket. He places a folded piece of paper on the counter, offering Hester to read it. The girl takes the note in bewilderment, thinking about its mysterious contents. Hester's eyes widen in horror as she reads the note. The note contains an order to enter the residence of Count Pestilland. Hester throws the order down on the counter in a rage, refusing to comply. The girl calls it absurd, trying to pretend she didn't hear anything. Lionel grabs her wrist sharply, stopping her attempt to leave. With a threatening look, he asks if he looks like the one who is asking. The man squeezes her hand tighter, saying that he doesn't usually do this. Lionel leans towards her, ominously asking if she wants to return to 𝘓𝘦𝘢 prison. Hester screams in a breaking voice for him to let her go immediately. The man roughly pushes the girl away and she flies back. Hester falls to the floor, surrounded by debris after being roughly pushed by Lionel. Lionel looms over her, eyes blazing, insisting that she understands that this is not a request. The girl, clenching her fists, admits that this is really not a request. Hester rises, declaring that there is still room for negotiation. Lionel asks with a wry smile if she really wants to negotiate with him. Hester, a former thief, boldly declares that she will dare to ask the head of the Central Pledge. She demands all the information about the jackal if she successfully completes the mission. Lionel is surprised because he thought she would be interested in Serge, Joel, or Edgar. Hester reminds that it all started because of the jackal, including the master's departure from the pledge. The people circling around her and her imprisonment in 𝘓𝘦𝘢 are all due to the escape of the jackal, who now roams freely around 𝘓𝘓𝘢. Hester is confident that information about the jackal will help her figure everything out. Lionel listens to her silently while his glass sits on the counter. The girl repeats, "Information about the jackal will provide answers to most of her questions." Lionel chuckles, reminding us that knowledge is power, but also a threat, and the truth can be inconvenient. Hester counters that it is better to know than to suffer in ignorance, because that way you can prepare. The man with the frightening aura wonders if she is fearless because she has already looked death in the face. Lionel turns away, admitting that he now understands the master's sympathy for Hester. His hand reaches for the glass of drink on the counter. Hester listens intently as Lionel agrees to pass on information about the jackal. The man smirks and sets a condition, only after the mission is successfully completed, and warns that they don't have any precise data. Hester states that she is not afraid of even fragmentary information because she needs to understand the situation. Lionel, leaving, promises to fix the wall by tomorrow and asks to use the door in the future. The man turns around with a grin, bidding Miss Frome farewell until we meet again. The girl is left alone in the midst of the devastation, silently pondering what happened. Hester sighs heavily, leaning weakly on the table where the note lies. Her gaze falls on the note, and she realizes that she only has a week to complete the task. The girl looks at the order with determination, wondering about the identity of Count Pestilland. A sudden vision: soldiers with torches set fire to the city on someone's orders. Hester sees a scene of carnage before her eyes. A boy screaming in despair over the bodies of the fallen. A bloody hand clasps a child's palm in the midst of flames, pleading, "Child, you must survive." In Hester's vision, the well is engulfed in flames and desperate cries for help are heard. A little girl, covered in blood, sits at the bottom of a well while a fire rages above. The girl cries in horror, covering her ears, her clothes stained with blood. Hester's hand clutches the order, which suddenly lights up. Hester looks away thoughtfully, considering what she has seen and what lies ahead. The memory of the girl with a bloody back surrounded by flames does not leave her. Hester cries out in surprise as flames engulf the corner of the order in her hands. In a panic, she tries to put out the burning paper, exclaiming that she hasn't finished reading yet. A shocked Hester leans against the table where the charred order is smoking. The girl is confused and wonders if her decision to come here was the right one. Hester slaps her cheeks, telling herself to pull herself together. The girl looks around the bar, realizing that there could be other rooms behind the walls since there is an armory. With a determined look, she declares that she needs to search everything. The next day, the carriage pulls up to the building of the central pledge bar. Hester struggles to move the heavy furniture, looking around the room. Her hand touches the chair, which also has to be moved. Looking around the room, she sees that the wall is indeed fixed, but everything else is in disarray. Hester mutters through tears, laughing. That swindler said he would fix everything. She remembers Lionel's words, promising to fix the wall by tomorrow. In despair, the girl realizes that he only fixed the wall, leaving the rest of the mess. Hester sighs and picks up her broom when a familiar voice calls out to her. Edgar suddenly hugs her from behind, offering to help her clean up. The girl moves away, playfully refusing points for help and offering a date in return. The sudden ringing of the doorbell interrupts their conversation, and Hester is surprised. As Hester turns to face the client, Edgar grabs her arm sharply, trying to stop her. Hester's eyes widen in fear and surprise at his sudden movement. She turns to Edgar, who looks a little confused and guilty. Edgar immediately apologizes, admitting that he frightened her with his sudden gesture. Hester, having recovered somewhat, mutters sheepishly that she was simply caught off guard. She asks him not to do it again, but agrees to a date the day after tomorrow, since she is busy tomorrow. Edgar considers her words with a serious look, agreeing to a date. Suddenly, two men appear in the bar, interrupting Hester's cleaning. One of them, the fair-haired Mr. 𝘓𝘬𝘯𝘓, happily rushes towards Hester, calling her darling. Edgar immediately stands between them, demanding that 𝘓𝘬𝘯𝘓 step aside, to which he responds sarcastically. Edgar smirks in his mind, certain that 𝘓𝘬𝘯𝘓 is simply jealous of his close relationship with Hester. Hester notices the second man, Joel, and greets him politely. 𝘓𝘬𝘯𝘓 condescendingly warns Edgar that his overconfidence in knowing Hester will lead to no good. Edgar angrily objects, declaring that he knows absolutely everything about Hess. 𝘓𝘬𝘯𝘓 intriguingly hints that stubbornness will prevent Edgar from seeing the new side of Hester that he helped her discover. An argument breaks out between the men. Edgar demands that she stop calling Hester darling and explain herself. Hester steps between the men, reminding them that fighting is prohibited in the pledge and threatening to throw them both out. The girl deftly pours ingredients into a shaker, deciding to diffuse the situation. She then carefully mixes the drink with a special spoon. Hester expertly shakes a cocktail behind the bar with an easy smile. The finished apple martini is elegantly poured into a glass garnished with an apple slice. Hester places the cocktail in front of Joel, addressing him politely. Joel, looking at the bruise on his wrist, suddenly asks if Lionel said that. Hester freezes in amazement, covering her other hand with her hand, clearly surprised by his insight. Her thoughts run through her head. There really are no secrets in this bar, recalling the recent debacle. Last night, Hester, remembering Lionel's words, was already looking for something important beyond these walls. Hester looks at the counter in surprise as something suddenly appears. She finds a folder marked Top Secret in her hands and whispers, "A hint?" The document reveals the identity of Joel 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓, a former knight from 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 and an informant. Joel looks at Hester with a piercing, searching gaze. Hester swallows nervously, considering the information she's received and his presence. Joel claims that Hester knows Lionel's real name and she doesn't need to hide it. He asks the manager to show him her hand. Hester hesitates, asking the reason. Joel takes something out of the inside pocket of his jacket. He carefully begins to bandage her wrist, where a bruise is visible. Joel calmly remarks that this should make the bruise go away faster. Hester looks away thoughtfully, considering Joel's offer. Gathering her courage, she asks Joel point-blank if he will teach her how to handle a gun. Joel takes a silent sip of his martini, as if weighing her unexpected request. With a slight smile, he agrees, promising to pick her up tomorrow at noon. Hester looks at Joel gratefully, pressing her hand to her chest. 𝘓𝘬𝘯𝘓, overhearing their conversation, anxiously asks Hester if she is really meeting that man tomorrow. Hester, calmly slicing a pineapple, confirms her plans while 𝘓𝘬𝘯𝘓 and Edgar compete for her attention. A tense silence falls over the bar as all three men await her decision. The next day, Hester arrives at a large building that looks like a training facility. Someone's hand confidently loads a revolver, preparing to shoot. Joel's hand confidently inserts cartridges into the revolver's cylinder. Joel chuckles thoughtfully as he aims his weapon on the training ground. He hands the revolver to Hester, reminding her to remember its weight, and she is surprised by its heaviness. In front of them lies a shooting range with several wooden targets. Hester watches closely as Joel demonstrates the proper shooting stance. Joel raises his revolver decisively, his silhouette outlined against the patterned window. He silently concentrates, preparing to show an example of a precise shot. Now Hester grips the handle of the revolver tightly, preparing for her first shot. The shell casing is ejected from the cylinder as Hester pulls the trigger, aiming at the target. The bullet hits the exact center of the target, leaving several holes. Hester exclaims in admiration, impressed by Joel's accuracy. Joel sighs heavily, his face looking pale and tired. Hester notices with concern the strange expression on Joel's face. The girl wonders why he didn't blush after jogging, but now he doesn't look well. A hand reaches out cautiously towards Joel as if in warning. Hester touches Joel's arm, looking at him with concern. She asks if he's okay, but Joel assures her that he's fine. Hester suggests ending the workout out of concern for his well-being. Joel admits that he made her nervous by noting her powers of observation. Hester is slightly embarrassed as she considers his words and her concerns. Joel gently assures Hester that she has nothing to worry about. It's his problem. Hester wonders with alarm how she can help but be worried when she sees him like this. The man resolutely declares that today he will simply aim at the target, without paying attention to the score. The girl realizes that he always seemed calm, but in fact he is very strict with himself. At night, a luxurious carriage drives up to the illuminated building. Guests in evening attire walk the red carpet on their way to the reception. The caption reads, 90 days left until the arrival of the master. The action takes place in the county of Pestiland, where numerous guests have gathered at the entrance to the mansion. The official reason for today's lavish reception is to celebrate the installation of a new fountain. In fact, this is an opportunity for the Count to boast about his young and beautiful wife, whom he married at a late age. Someone's hand adjusts his cap, because this is information obtained over the past few days. A young man in a cap and vest declares that he has infiltrated this event today. Passing through the back door with a cart, he heads to the kitchen, past the guards. Finding himself in the wine cellar, the guy wonders in surprise whether someone really got ahead of him. Meanwhile, another man in similar clothing hides behind the boxes, listening. The first young man continues to push the cart, while the second quickly disappears into the doorway. The guy looks around, noting that this employee looks like he's in a big hurry. While looking through a cellar full of expensive wine and champagne, he notices something strange. The packaging on the bottles is open just enough so that all the corks are visible, which raises suspicion. While wondering what was going on, the young man heard another worker shout, demanding that he hurry up. A young man in a cap looks around the wine cellar, hearing a rustling sound behind him. The door in the corridor opens slightly, and a girl in a maid's uniform looks out. This is Hester, dressed in uniform and unhappy with all this fuss over some jackal. The manager notices her and asks her sternly why she is leaving there, and Hester babbles that she was cleaning. The man scolds her for her delay and sends her into the hall, and Hester is relieved to think that she has not been caught. In the luxurious ballroom, many guests whirl and dance under the light of a huge chandelier. Hester, with a tray of drinks, looks for a quick way to complete her mission. Hester's gaze falls on a familiar blonde man dancing with a lady in red. She recognizes the elegantly dressed man with purple eyes. It is Mr. Serge. Hester panics and tries to escape unnoticed, wondering what Serge is doing there. Hester quickly hides behind a heavy red curtain, eavesdropping on the conversation. The lady in red asks Serge if he is bored, and he, smiling, confirms her guess. Serge, with a charming smile, asks Miss Rebecca if she is bored too. Miss Rebecca coquettishly admits that he is right and this place is not very cheerful. Serge asks with a piercing gaze if she is bored because she doesn't like the Count. Rebecca complains that she needs to escort the artist to Vitriol, but there is no budget for security, since relations with the Vitriol Empire are strained. Serge gallantly offers his help, saying that he will lend her his personal security. He asks Miss Rebecca with a confident smile to simply trust him. Miss Rebecca gratefully offers Serge a drink, which he accepts. Hester, still hidden behind the curtain, watches this scene closely. Suddenly, a servant approaches Hester, informing her that the champagne has run out. Miss Rebecca comes out from behind the curtain, and Hester promises to bring drinks immediately. Hester thinks irritably that this distraction is most inopportune now. Meanwhile, Serge quietly pours out the drink offered to him. He recalls with displeasure that he made it clear that he doesn't drink. Hester watches in amazement at his two-faced behavior. The girl turns around decisively, her boots clicking on the floor. Hester hurries away, convinced that Serge cannot be trusted. Remembering the order to enter the residence, she notices someone ahead. At the end of the illuminated corridor, Hester sees a man in a mask. The inscription states the penetration zone is the Count's second office. Hester looks out from behind the door, for the time to act is when the Count plays the piano at the end of the banquet. The girl finds the right door with relief. It is the second office. Hester deftly picks the lock on the office door with a hairpin. She remembers with annoyance that she had vowed never to steal again. The door gives way, and Hester enters a luxuriously furnished office. Following the instructions, the girl first of all closes the curtains tightly. Her target is the Count's notebook, the contents of which must be copied without taking the notebook itself. In a desk drawer, she discovers 3 notebooks covered with notes. Hester immediately begins copying the musical notations in pencil. Hester diligently copies out the notes, wondering why the Count does not use regular music paper. Suddenly, there is a burst of applause. Hester realizes that she needs to get out immediately. The unknown person's hand reaches for the door handle of the office where the girl is. Hester quickly hides the copied sheets in a special case on her hip. Carefully opening the door, she looks out into the corridor, checking the way. The girl rushes away because her mission is accomplished and she needs to hide as quickly as possible. Hester slips out of the hallway through another door, looking around. She finds herself in a nearly empty ballroom, wondering where everyone has gone. Stepping out onto the balcony, Hester notices a crowd of guests gathered in the garden below. The girl is puzzled. Why are all the guests outside and what is going on? Hester decides that now is not the time. She needs to hide and observe the situation. A hand with an emerald ring raises a glass of champagne, thanking everyone present. The host of the evening at the fountain announces that he will now introduce the architect of this creation. The guests are introduced to 𝘓𝘕𝘯𝘓𝘓, who waves his hand with a smile. Hester, hiding in the bushes, recognizes Edgar in complete amazement. Edgar gives a speech expressing gratitude for the opportunity to work on the fountain, and the guests applaud. Edgar laughs happily, clearly enjoying the moment of his triumph. Hester thoughtfully notes that she has never seen this design, and Edgar has never hidden anything from her before. Edgar suddenly turns around, as if he felt someone's gaze from behind the bushes. Hester ducks in alarm, thinking he's looking straight at her. Hester, crouched in the bushes, suddenly hears a voice and sees the manager. Mr. Joel is indeed standing in front of her, taking her by surprise. The girl thinks in despair. When things go wrong, everything goes wrong at once. Mr. Joel is discreetly interested in her presence, mentioning his meeting. Hester anxiously asks again who the manager's mysterious interlocutor is. The man calmly confirms that he does indeed have an appointment. Suddenly, a champagne cart rushes past them, almost knocking them off their feet. One of the bottles falls off the cart and rolls straight to Mr. Joel's feet. Hester watches this ridiculous accident with amazement. The manager's hand calmly picks up the fallen bottle of sparkling wine. Hester holds the bottle and an idea strikes her. On the cork, she notices a tiny mark, similar to a needle prick. Meanwhile, in the garden, guests are carefree drinking champagne by the fountain. Hester turns pale as she realizes the sinister meaning of what she has seen. An image of a man secretly operating in a wine cellar comes to mind. Like pieces of a puzzle, memories fit together to form an ominous picture. A terrible thought pierces her. There could be poison in the bottle. And the guests are already being served festive champagne from the Count himself. The girl rushes to Mr. Joel, begging him to stop everyone immediately. Without wasting a second, she takes out a pistol from a hidden holster on her hip. Hester hands the gun to Mr. Joel, calling him by name. The girl apologizes, knowing his dislike of weapons, and asks him to shoot the Count's glass. Meanwhile, the Count raises his glass, preparing to make a toast to the guests. Mr. Joel, although with visible reluctance, takes the gun from Hester's hands. Hester watches his actions with bated breath, hoping for success. The manager resolutely rushes forward through the bushes towards the unsuspecting guests. Mr. Joel raises his hand with the pistol, aiming at the Count's glass. With a cold gleam in his eyes, he pulls the trigger without a second's hesitation. The glass in the Count's hand shatters into small pieces from a precise shot. The guests run away in panic. Screams of horror fill the garden near the fountain. Mr. Joel warns Hester that a chase is about to begin and shows her an escape route. The manager returns the gun to the girl, advising her to disappear into the crowd and run. Hester anxiously asks Joel if he won't go with her. The man places his hand on her head reassuringly, saying that he needs to meet someone. Chaos reigns in the garden. The guests run away in panic in different directions. Hester, taking off her cap, tries to blend in with the fleeing crowd, her face expressing concern. Meanwhile, Mr. Joel is heading resolutely towards the mansion, going against the flow of people. The manager enters the empty ballroom, his footsteps echoing in the silence. A mysterious lady wearing a pearl necklace with a pink stone awaits him in the hall. The woman asks with a smile if he has come to see her as Joel approaches. Mr. Joel approaches the lady, addressing her as Countess. The Countess, with a glass in her hand, asks to be called Astrid. Astrid notes with surprise that she did not expect to see Lord Joel, the envoy from the Palace of 𝘓𝘯𝘓𝘓, and is glad that he survived the war. Joel, touching the dagger, replies that he renounced this title long ago. The manager, clutching the hilt of his dagger, asks why she didn't run away with the others. Astrid calmly takes a sip from her glass. The woman admits that it was she who arranged everything, and since she failed, it was time to say goodbye. Blood drips from Astrid's lips as she says that a commoner cannot dishonor 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 and survive. Flashback. Astrid, in mourning at the coffin, vows never to marry again after the death of her lover. The map shows how her marriage to Count 𝘓𝘓𝘓 became a diplomatic decision after the capture of 𝘕𝘕𝘠𝘠's train. Astrid's memory, she was married off at the behest of the old count. The fragile peace between 𝘓𝘓𝘓 and 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 destroyed her peace as the Viscount's daughter. And in the end, she was forced to bear this man's child. A drop of poison slowly falls into the glass, sealing the fate. Astrid, dagger in hand, tells Joel that he promised to avenge her. Joel asks seriously if she means 𝘕𝘕𝘠𝘠. The Countess smiles weakly, blood still oozing from her lips. Astrid's hand unclenches. The glass of poison falls and shatters into pieces. The woman slumps in her chair, her gaze clouding over. Joel watches her final moments in silence. Joel gently closes Astrid's eyes, wishing her peace. The manager leaves, and Hester watches him in horror from behind the door. The girl quietly closes the door, shocked by what she saw. Hester's eyes are full of determination. She knows what to do next. At the bar, a gray-haired man meets her and offers her a drink. Hester places a notebook on the counter in front of him. The girl pours herself a drink from a bottle. Add a wedge of lime to a glass with ice. The Moscow Mule cocktail is ready and served. Hester, now dressed differently, holds a cocktail glass in her hand. The white-haired man notices that Hester has succeeded and now wants information about 𝘕𝘕𝘠𝘠. He examines the gun, noting that one bullet is missing from the magazine. Hester takes a calm sip of her cocktail as she listens to him. A man mentions a suspicious needle mark on a bottle of champagne. The girl turns around, her gaze expressing slight bewilderment. Suddenly, the interlocutor points the gun directly at Hester, his face serious. Hester's eyes widen in horror and surprise. The man lowers his weapon with a smile, saying he was just joking. Hester angrily calls him a jerk, and he remarks on her lack of a sense of humor, like Rosie's. The girl asks in surprise, "Rosie, master?" while the man prepares to examine her find. The gray-haired man notes the unusual appearance of the score, and Hester confirms that she copied it exactly. He explains that it is a cipher in the form of musical notation, which requires a special key to decipher. Hester winces, realizing the complexity of her find. The gray-haired man demonstrates how superimposing a key on the notes reveals a hidden message. "Let me go." A man with a glass in his hand asks what Hester knows about Madame Astrid. Hester remembers Astrid's last words and admits that she only knows of her 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 origins. The silver-haired man states that Astrid was held hostage and mentions the incident with the Duke's train. It turns out that King 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 was also on that train, and 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 was responsible for 𝘕𝘕𝘠𝘠𝘠, who almost escaped. The result of this incident was a political marriage between Count 𝘓𝘓𝘓 and Astrid. Hester is shocked to realize that that conversation with Astrid had a much deeper meaning. The gray-haired man asks if Hester sympathizes with the Countess and warns against emotions. Hester clenches her fist, wondering why she was sent there in the first place. The man explains, information was received about the Countess's suspicious behavior. He assumes that Astrid, wanting to return to her homeland, colluded with someone. It dawns on Hester. Could this code have been intended for 𝘕𝘕𝘠𝘠𝘠? The girl, placing her hand on her chest, asks Mr. Lionel to tell her more. Mr. Lionel grins and promises to give her information about 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘓. The text on the black background reads, "Servants from 𝘓𝘓𝘓 and 𝘕𝘓𝘯 arrested 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘓. The testimonies about him agree. He wore a mask, was a man, and an excellent marksman." Hester asks, disappointed, if this is all the evidence about 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘓. Lionel grimly reports that everyone who had contact with 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘓, including the convoy and prison guards, has disappeared. Hester asks if this means that no one knows his real face or what mask he wore. The man replies, "It was a pure white goat mask. Witnesses confirmed the presence of horns." The girl shudders at the terrible details and mutters, "How terrible!" Hester asks how good a shot 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘓 is, and Lionel replies that they say he can hit his target without even looking. Suddenly, Lionel pulls out a revolver, demonstrating his grip. He falls to the floor and without aiming points the gun upward, saying, "Like this." Hester's eyes widen, recognizing that stance. An image of a man aiming in exactly the same way comes to mind. Lionel explains that this stance is long out of use and requires a lot of experience to control the recoil. Lionel snaps his fingers, getting Hester's attention. He asks with a smile whether she listened carefully to his detailed explanations. The man turns away from the counter, preparing to leave. Lionel reports that this is all the information and praises Hester for her work. The girl winces when she hears that next time he will explain the task more thoroughly. Hester asks in surprise if there will really be a next task, to which Lionel smirks at her naivety. She indignantly exclaims that he didn't say anything about future plans. Lionel sits up, noticing that she is clearly interested in the incident. He adds with a grin that he is worried for their master if Hester goes looking for 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘓 with such little information. Suddenly, a scene appears. A red-haired girl in a raincoat with a suitcase waving goodbye from the window. Lionel grins sinisterly, declaring that he knows an alarming amount about Miss Frome. Hester's face darkens as she feels his shadow looming over her. He leaves with a "until next time," leaving Hester alone in the empty bar. Wiping the glass, the girl quietly says, "How confusing it all is." Looking at her reflection, she laments the lack of leads in the 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘓 case. The figure in the white goat mask appears before her mind's eye again. Hester thinks hard, trying to connect the dots between the facts she knows. It suddenly dawns on her. Lionel's stance is painfully reminiscent of someone else's. The glass trembles in her hands from a shocking guess. No, this can't be. The scene where Mr. Joel prevented the guests from drinking the poisoned champagne comes to mind. Hester remembers Joel's kind eyes because he always helped her. Moments with Joel come to her mind, and she desperately doesn't want to suspect him. The girl continues to wipe the glass with a heavy heart, tormented by doubts. Suddenly, the bar door opens and Hester turns around at the sound of footsteps. Having fluttered into the room, a spectacular pink-haired lady joyfully greets the manager. Hester recognizes the visitor. "Aisha, long time no see." The manager offers Aisha her usual apricot drink, but she wants something different today. Aisha orders a Moon River with a smile and asks for 2 cherries for garnish. Hester good-naturedly remarks that Aisha is usually a big fan of apricots. The girl takes the bottle, thoughtfully repeating to herself, 2 cherries, that means. Hester pours a cocktail, guessing that Aisha did not come just like that, but with information. The manager places the Moon River on the counter, decorated with 2 cherries as the guest requested. Aisha tries the drink and is delighted, praising Hester's skill. Then the visitor, coquettishly propping up her cheek, asks how Hester has been doing lately. She asks if everything is okay with them, hinting at someone's relationship. Hester answers evasively with a smile, and Aisha jealously comments on the possible date. The chibi-style girls exchange humorous remarks about Hester's popularity. Suddenly, Aisha comes to her senses, deciding that it is time to get to the essence of the visit. The pink-haired lady asks Hester to bend over, intending to tell her something in confidence. Aisha whispers that a strange rumor has been spreading among the nobility lately. Aisha talks about a fairy who grants wishes and shows an origami paper arrow. At first, everyone thought that these arrows were just random graffiti. They thought it was a childish prank, but the hand reaches out to the mysterious sign. They say that the answer appears where the note with the wish disappears and the arrow darkens. Aisha remembers a young lady bragging about this at a social event, and Hester immediately asks what exactly. It turns out that it was the 𝘓𝘓𝘯𝘓 cipher, an ancient method of encoding. Hester is surprised, and Aisha explains that the code is deciphered when the paper is wound around a stick. Rumor has it that the fairy takes the note with the wish and answers in this secret way, Hester thinks. Aisha suggests that this is all a bit like spy games, doesn't it? Laughing, Aisha states that the rumor is intriguing and she intends to investigate it, promising to let Hester know the news. Hester thanks her but asks Aisha to be careful, to which she coquettishly replies that she will not leave the manager. Aisha adds that she wants to see her favorite client for a long time, holding the seal in her hand. The pink-haired lady hands Hester a gift, 2 bags with pictures of grapes on them. Hester thanks her for the valuable information, and Chibi Aisha enthusiastically shouts that the manager is the best. Hester pensively repeats about the wish-granting fairy, feeling an inexplicable uneasiness. Suddenly, Chibi Aisha remembers that she has something else for the manager. Aisha hands Hester a sealed envelope, much to her surprise. The visitor explains that before entering, someone asked her to give this letter to Hester. Hester's eyes widen in shock when she sees the contents of the letter. On the envelope, in large letters, is written, "Directive for infiltration of the Melee Opera House." Aisha curiously asks if it is a love letter, seeing Hester's shock. Hester's hand crumples the letter with the orders. She thinks about how long ago the first mission ended. Hester is angry that the order was delivered without her being able to object, and imagines the sender's smirk. The manager asks Aisha to wait and resolutely steps aside. Hester heads to the back room of the bar with a letter in her hand. She throws the envelope into the sink and it immediately bursts into flames. Hester laments herself as a walking disaster as the pledge bar lights up the night street. Meanwhile, we are shown the royal castle of 𝘓𝘯𝘓𝘍𝘓, the greatest ally of the Blooded Empire. 2 days after breaking into the Count's residence, 2 guards guard the prison gates. Behind bars in a cell sits a depressed man, apparently connected to the previous mission. Joel sits in the cell, his face darkened by heavy thoughts. Joel kneels before King 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 in the throne room. The king looks at Joel, noting that he hasn't seen him for a long time. The ruler is sure that Joel knows the reason for the summons, and he confirms his guess. A scroll with a message appears next to the kneeling Joel. The king reads a letter from Lady Astrid begging him to fake her death and asks why Joel left her. Joel's eyes narrow as he considers the answer to the difficult question. Clenching his fist, Joel says the woman's name. Her name was Astrid, Your Majesty. The king asks if this is so important to Joel, to which he firmly answers yes. The king's lips curl slightly as he listens to Joel's answer. The king reminds Joel that Astrid was the fiancée of his friend, Lord Valheim, and inquires about the deceased's last will. A memory flashes where the name Count Seacrest is heard. Joel holds the dying count in his arms in the middle of the battlefield, who asks him to retreat. The friend's bloody hand clenches, commanding Joel to return and survive. Joel tells the king that Valheim did not mention her, and the ruler wonders why Joel did not cover Astrid's tracks. Because it was the right thing to do, comes Joel's firm reply. The king, frowning, demands that what was said be repeated. Joel explains that this is the only right thing to do for the one who sacrificed himself for 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓. He lists the milestones of Astrid's life, emphasizing her connection to 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 and asking rhetorically about her legacy without that connection. The king's eyes flash and he pronounces his verdict: shame. The king reminds Joel that the sword of 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓 must punish enemies and follow orders. The ruler points angrily at Joel, asking if he dares to disobey his master. Joel grips the hilt of his sword, assuring that he will carry out the order if the king wishes to punish someone. The man, holding the sword in front of him, declares that this blade will no longer blindly obey. Joel turns away, claiming that he will no longer follow 𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓𝘓's will. He stands alone in the huge hall, finishing the sentence, and his own. The king's eyes sparkle as he says the full name, Joel Freyan Seacrest. The ruler's fist clenches on the arm of the throne as he asks if Joel is betraying his country. The overlord states that because of past loyalty, he will give Joel time to think. The guards take Joel away, who is forbidden to leave the castle until he changes his mind. Joel sits in his cell, handcuffed, contemplating his situation. While he thinks he's going to be stuck here for a long time, we're shown Hester at the bar. Joel, looking through the bars, hopes that Hester will be safe until then. Hester is cleaning the bar and a sign says, "Master will return in 74 days. She studies the details of the order, to break into the dressing room and take the painting, Seascape. Hester sighs heavily, wondering when she will investigate everything and make a plan. Suddenly, a gray-haired man appears, offering Hester his help. A blonde man appears behind him, coquettishly asking to give him this job. Hester runs away from them, thinking how tiresome it is to deal with these people. Swinging her broom in irritation, she decides that a preliminary investigation is still better. Hester decides that after the previous confusion, this time she needs to act on the spot. She complains that she knows nothing about opera and theater, dreaming of a man who knows. Hester rests her chin thoughtfully as she contemplates the task at hand. Turning around, she sees two men waiting curiously for her decision. The blonde gives her a charming smile, clearly hoping for her choice. Hester mutters that she needs to think, causing surprise in the gray-haired man and delight in the blonde. The gray-haired man wonders what she is thinking, and the blonde man assumes that Hester has chosen his rival. The men call her in turn, but Hester, lost in thought, looks away. Suddenly she remembers, I haven't seen Joel in a long time, and his ghost appears behind the counter. Hester thinks that 6 days have passed since their last meeting at the Earl's house without news. Hester looks out the window, hoping that Joel is okay. The gray-haired man asks curiously what she is really thinking. Hester flinches, clearly embarrassed by his insight. She turns away, saying he doesn't need to know, and leaves him wondering. Hester nervously reflects that she may have to go on a date with Serge. Blonde Serge beams with happiness, surrounded by roses, anticipating the meeting. Meanwhile, an unknown man in uniform is kneeling, tormented by a burning fever. He confesses that a certain woman brought him out of the darkness and he cannot live without her. A white-haired female knight appears, declaring her duty and unwillingness to rely on the kindness of others. She leaves to protect her people, leaving the kneeling man behind. The man in uniform looks into the distance with pain, tormented by thoughts. He is afraid that after leaving this place, she will forget him and find happiness with others. With tears in his eyes, he admits that he is powerless to interfere with her happiness. His silhouette with a sword against the backdrop of a bloody glow indicates a readiness for extreme measures. The man's face is lifeless. He lies in a pool of blood on the wooden floor. The body is spread out, a sword is plunged into the chest, the tragic denouement of his suffering. Suddenly the scene changes. It is a performance in a huge opera hall full of spectators. Hester and Serge watch the events on stage from the box. Hester and Serge sit in velvet chairs, watching the drama intently. The plot of the opera Vanderbilt's Night unfolds on the stage. A female knight bends over a dying man. Serge playfully remarks that he didn't know about Hester's love for the theater while she was thinking about her mission. Hester asks Serge if he is interested in opera, and he replies that there is a lot to learn. Serge whispers in Hester's ear that they are talking about the leading actors of the opera Vanderbilt's Night. Hester pulls away, but Serge coquettishly asks her not to go far. He explains that the excitement is caused by a popular opera, and the playwright and actors are celebrities from Osber. Serge says the troupe decided to tour, but 2 actors refused to go. These 2 turned out to be the main performers, the leading actress and the actor. Serge is understanding of the actress. She recently got married and is expecting a child. However, the actor, Alan Mesquita, had no compelling reason to refuse, which surprises Hester. Hester finds this strange, and Serge sighs that it is almost impossible to convince either of them. Hester asks in surprise if Serge is trying to persuade them. Serge proudly states that he is the one who owns the rights to foreign tours. Hester mentally calls him a braggart, but admits that the tour is possible thanks to him. Suddenly, Serge, in a cute chibi form, shows her the actor's dressing room. He continues the tour, showing off the scene while Hester ponders his connections. Serge, with a sly smile, remarks that he is surprised by her ignorance. Hester laughs nervously, justifying herself by saying that she simply hasn't been informed yet. A beaming Serge suggests a tour of the theater's backstage area as a last stop. Hester curiously asks what is behind the scenes. When she hears about the props and development, she gets excited. This is exactly what she needs. Suddenly, a hand falls on Hester's shoulder, causing her to turn around. It is Edgar, her brother, calling her name in surprise. Hester is shocked, not believing her eyes. Edgar? Edgar is no less surprised, exclaiming, "Sister!" Hester asks what he is doing there, and Edgar explains that he came to make props. Edgar is stunned when he hears about the date with Serge, and Serge in chibi form is interested in the word cute. Serge comes up from behind, smiling knowingly. "So that's why you fell behind." Hester apologizes to Serge for the delay, who only smiles indulgently. Serge takes Hester's hand, offering to continue the tour, and she agrees. Suddenly, Edgar grabs Hester's other hand firmly, stopping her. Hester looks at her brother in confusion, asking what he is doing. Edgar invites his sister to go with him, promising to show her everything. Serge watches this scene with undisguised irritation, A vein swells in his temple. 𝘕𝘓 firmly but gently pulls Edgar's hand away from Hester's. Surrounded by roses, 𝘕𝘓 playfully asks if Hester is cheating on him, assuring him that he only has eyes for her. Hester, blushing, asks haltingly, "Cheating?" 𝘕𝘓 reminds them that today is their date, and Edgar objects that their meeting was an accident. A verbal altercation ensues. 𝘕𝘓 accuses Edgar of interfering, and Edgar teases him with jealousy. Hester, tired of their argument, asks both of them to get to the point. Unable to bear it any longer, Hester screams loudly, "Stop it!" and her voice echoes throughout the theater. Outside the theater, after the stormy scene, the atmosphere seems calmer. In the end, Edgar left first, citing urgent work matters. Hester apologizes to 𝘕𝘓, who waves her off, surprised by Edgar's appearance. Hester still feels awkward, and 𝘕𝘓 looks at her thoughtfully. 𝘕𝘓, taking Hester by the hand, invites her to go on another date another time. Hester, blushing slightly, was clearly taken aback by this proposal. She reflects on the need to give others a chance, and 𝘕𝘓 notes her integrity. Hester admits that she really enjoyed the tour of the opera house. She decides to generously price the date, knowing how important it is for 𝘕𝘓. 𝘕𝘓, with bated breath and a blush on his cheeks, awaits her verdict on the date. Hester smiles and gives 𝘕𝘓 4 fingers as she rates the date. 𝘕𝘓 looks at her in bewilderment, clearly not expecting such an assessment. Hester asks if it's really that shocking and thanks him for walking her. She wishes him a good journey and says goodbye as she enters the house. 𝘕𝘓, still red, touches his neck, thinking about her words. In a pink glow, 𝘕𝘓 thinks that Hester knows how to touch hearts. The action moves to the building of the pawn bar on a sunny day. Inside the bar, a timer shows 69 days until the master's return, and Hester notices a note. Hester takes the note, fearing that it is another assignment. She reads, "It's me, Hester," and her eyes widen in surprise. The note reads, "It's me, Hester," and the girl whispers in shock, "Ho, mistress?" Hester can't believe it. Did the mistress really come and leave without saying a word? In the letter, the owner asks to find him quickly before Leo intervenes, and Hester guesses that it is about Lionel. The mistress threatens to deal with the jackal in a letter, and Hester understands that things are not going well for her. Further in the letter, the hostess mentions 3 spies, about whom Hester should have already learned. The board shows names, Joel, 𝘕𝘓, Edgar, and numbers next to them, and the letter hints at big trouble. The landlady assumes that Lionel is pestering Hester and sympathizes with her. The letter says that the landlady has prepared some things to help Hester. Opening the box, Hester sees luxurious outfits and shoes, a gift from the owner. After trying on the new dress, Hester looks thoughtfully in the mirror, appraising the gift. Hester, in her new outfit and holding a fan, wonders if this look will suit her. In chibi form, she admits that the dress is a little uncomfortable but bearable. Leaving a note, Hester thanks her hostess and promises to return safe and sound today. Determined, Hester, dressed in a luxurious dress, leaves the house to meet her new assignment. The action moves to the 𝘕𝘓𝘯𝘗 Opera House, at the entrance of which a smartly dressed crowd has gathered. Hester, finding herself among a multitude of people, notes their number to herself. In her hands is the order to penetrate the 𝘕𝘓𝘯 Opera House. The target is a painting, the location is a dressing room. Hester realizes that she must act immediately after the second act begins, with caution during the intermission. Before the start of the performance, she decides to hide and sneak into the dressing room. Hester looks around carefully, looking for an opportunity to slip past the guards unnoticed. Hester walks down the hallway, deciding to pretend to be a fan in case she fails. She remembers the wish-granting fairy and continues on her way. A memory emerges of breaking into the Count's mansion, where the Countess's portrait was splattered with blood. Hester thinks that the mission was connected with the Countess's strange behavior. She suspects that someone on the opera staff is behaving suspiciously. Hester wonders if this man has made a wish, like the Countess. A scene appears in her mind. A man strikes a woman who talks about taking revenge for her. Hester wonders if one of them has made a contract with the jackal. Approaching the door, she tries to understand what is happening, if not this. Opening the door, Hester sees an elegant man in purple in the dressing room. The man in the dressing room looks at Hester in surprise, calling her cute. Hester freezes in the doorway, clearly not expecting such a meeting. In a panic, Hester babbles that he's made a mistake and tries to close the door. The man grins, noting that he clearly remembers the hazel color of the cutie's eyes. Hester breathes out in relief, covering her chest with her hand, thinking that she was not recognized. Suddenly, Hester, now with her brown hair, asks 𝘕𝘓 what he is doing here. Serge reminds her about the foreign rights to Vanderbilt Knight. He touches her hair gently, clearly recognizing her. Serge says he came for his rights and notes that her natural hair is better. He insists it's true, even though he looks suspicious, and Hester feels her back cramp up again. Hester wonders how Serge knows about 𝘓𝘦𝘯𝘕𝘬𝘓, since he clearly doesn't like him. Suddenly, Hester freezes when she hears a sound. She understands with alarm. This is applause. Has the first act really ended? The hall explodes with applause. The first act of the opera has come to an end. Serge, putting his hand on her shoulder, asks in surprise if 𝘓𝘦𝘯𝘕𝘬𝘓 is really her type. Hester coquettishly replies that her type is standing right in front of her. Lost in thought, Hester reaches for the clasp on the back of her dress. She begins to unbutton her dress, saying, "In that case..." Hester turns around and asks Serge to help the one he likes so much. Serge blushes in shock, and Hester explains that the dress is simply uncomfortable and that there are clothes underneath. Serge, covering his face with his hand, asks sheepishly if he is sure he can do this, and Hester urges him on. Serge's trembling hand touches the clasp on the back of Hester's dress. Serge slowly unzips the dress, revealing the white fabric underneath. Hester stands with her back turned as Serge carefully helps her with her dress. Hester asks him with a grin why he's laughing, looking at his embarrassed face. She admits that she thought Mr. Serge would easily handle the unbuttoning. Serge, finally finished, steps back, and Hester asks who he takes her for. Hester, taking off her dress, says that she simply thought he was experienced in dealing with ladies. She asks with a sly smile if this is his first time. Serge, blushing deeply, admits that yes, he is doing this for the first time. Hester is surprised and silent, not knowing what to say to his confession. Serge chuckles, offering not to lie because of his presence, but Hester insists on the truth. A sudden knock on the door interrupts their conversation, causing both of them to become wary. Hester panics as she hears footsteps coming towards them, and Serge grabs her hand. Serge yanks Hester sharply, dragging her deeper into the dressing room. Top view. Serge quickly hides Hester in one of the costume closets. A man looks into the dressing room, suspiciously asking if anyone is there. The man enters the room decisively, his steps echoing loudly throughout the room. Looking around, he rubs his neck, clearly looking for something or expecting someone. Finding no one, the man chuckles, looking around the empty dressing room with rows of costumes. Hiding in the closet, Hester cuddles up to Serge, hearing her heart pounding. Serge, slightly embarrassed, senses her closeness as they hide among the suits. Once out, Hester admits that she was scared to death, and Serge agrees. Hester wonders why Mr. Serge hid with her, since they didn't need it. Serge thoughtfully straightens his tie, clearly considering the answer to her question. A playful dialogue flashes through his mind. He wanted to hide her, but she thinks that hiding alone is sad. Hester, waving it off, decides not to attach any importance to it and comes out of hiding. Serge notices that she doesn't pester him with questions while they stand in the middle of the dressing room. Hester looks forward resolutely, declaring that there is something more important now. Her gaze is directed at the painting of the seascape, hinting at more urgent matters. Hester looks at the huge painting on the floor, contemplating its size. Serge asks Hester with a smile if she wants this painting. Close-up of Serge's face, he grins slyly. Serge takes the painting off the wall, saying that he too will not ask unnecessary questions. He hangs the painting on another wall, suggesting to Hester that it's a way to earn points with the acting master, while she thinks about keeping him quiet. Serge suddenly frowned in confusion, noticing something. He guesses, it's steganography, isn't it? And Hester doesn't understand what he's talking about. Serge explains that this is a way of hiding codes, showing the back of the painting with the cipher, and notes that he has never seen anything like this before. Hester takes out a pair of dainty scissors, thinking that carrying the entire painting would be too heavy and would attract attention. She firmly states that she will simply cut out the necessary part, and Chibi Serge admires her resourcefulness. Hester carefully cuts the back of the canvas with scissors. When she's finished, she and Serge look at the cutout pieces, saying, "Done." The text appears on the pieces. "I hope that today will be the end of the finale, where I die without deserving her love. Prince 𝘓𝘦𝘯𝘕𝘬𝘓 in my memories. It is enough that he exists only for me." Serge looks at the message thoughtfully, asking Hester what the offer is. A thought flashes through his mind. 𝘓𝘓𝘯𝘕𝘬𝘓? Is this a code left for the fairy? Serge continues to ponder. If this is Prince 𝘓𝘓𝘯𝘕𝘓𝑡's wish, then whoever wrote it could have been... His gaze falls on the dressing table with a sign, 𝘓𝘦𝘯𝘮𝘯𝘕. Serge mutters, "Damn, tragic ending where he always dies. Prince 𝘓𝘦𝘯𝘮𝘯." He recalls, "By the way, I heard that Alan, who plays 𝘓𝘓𝘯, has improved his acting skills and seems to genuinely love the leading lady." The sinister silhouette of 𝘓𝘦𝘯𝘓𝘮 appears before their mind's eye. Serge and Hester listen anxiously to the sounds from the stage. On stage, Alan, in the role of the prince, says, "This terrible fever that torments me does not pass." His monologue continues. "You brought me out of darkness into light, opened up a world I didn't know." Alan, squeezing his hand on his chest, says with difficulty, "I can't do it anymore, without you." The actress on stage looks at him in surprise, saying, "Alan?" Close-up of Alan with real tears streaming down his face, looking completely broken. Hester's eyes widen in sudden realization or alarm. Hester turns decisively, as if having made a decision, and Serge watches her go. Hester runs out of the dressing room screaming, "Honey, come on, Mr. Serge, we need to get backstage." Serge looks after her, stunned, not understanding what is happening. Serge hurries after Hester, asking, "Honey, what are you going to do?" And she begins, "First of all,